You're watching Notepad and I'm your host Ibrahim Sani. Today we shall talk about property, particularly Juai.com, the #1 Chinese property firm that are currently trying to see the opportunities of foreign buyers into the local market. Joining me is the Chairman of the Board, Georg Chmiel, the Chairman of the Board of Juai.com. We just want to learn a little bit more about the ongoings of the property market. Georg, thanks again for sharing the time with us. I just want to know more about Juai.com. I don't think many Malaysians understand or know what you guys do in this part of the world. What do you guys do?
We're the biggest marketplace which brings properties to Chinese buyers. So we're an online company and we're in the process of merging with a large real estate group out of Southeast Asia, IQI. And then we are an end-to-end provider for overseas properties all around the world to Chinese as well as to other Asian buyers.
So of course the hot topic right now is on the current crisis that is currently happening in Hong Kong, resulting in some news emerging that Hong Kong property buyers are now looking to other markets to buy property. One of them is of course Malaysia. What would be some of the background to this story that you can share?
Malaysia has always been the #1 destination for Hong Kong buyers, even before the protests started 4 months ago. The protests have impacted the reputation of Hong Kong a bit, in particular in the tourism as well as in the retail area, where overseas travelers are not frequenting Hong Kong as much as they did in the past. Hasn't really impacted the real estate market up there yet. Prices are marginally down, but there's not much supply there, so the market is fairly stable, and once this situation is resolved, it will bounce back. But still, it has led to people thinking elsewhere, investing elsewhere, thinking about retiring elsewhere, and that's where Malaysia comes into play.
The Minister Zuraida has also mentioned that she wants to make the Malaysian property market a little bit more attractive towards foreign buyers. This has indeed resulted in people in Malaysia raising concerns about foreign buyers buying into properties of Malaysia. The main problem that they foresee are two. Number one, the artificial rising of the cost of properties in Malaysia. And number two, this will outcost the Malaysians from buying their own property in their own country. How do you see these concerns?
I don't share these concerns because there's a certain boundary, a certain threshold, a minimum amount a foreign buyer has to invest in when they want to buy real estate, which is 1 million ringgit and above. So therefore, people from overseas buying Malaysian properties are not driving up prices in the affordable house segment. So it's important to focus on the affordable house segment, but at the same time also build up this segment which targets overseas buyers, because it allows property developers to earn money and really prosper. Malaysia is also has a lot of space, has a lot of interesting features for overseas buyers, whether they're interested in retiring in Malaysia, whether they're interested in sending their kids to the very good education system in Malaysia, or whether they just want to invest in Malaysia. So has a range of advantages. Also tourism is very attractive in Malaysia, and one of the strong points I think also on the agenda for 2020.
I want to stick on the concerns. It's interesting that you don't share these concerns. There is also another concern that is overlapping this particular level of conversation, where some of the properties that you say that certain threshold, the houses that are currently priced 600, 700,000, whatever, 900,000, they are now being pushed up to over $1 million or 1 million ringgit, sorry. And that would enable foreign buyers to come into the picture. Is this a real thing that's happening in the market right now?
I can't really see it because, I mean, at the moment we have got a slight oversupply of property, so I can't really see room to push up property prices by that strong amount from 600 to 1 million and so on. But obviously it's something to be always mindful of and always track and so on. But compared to many other countries, this floor price of 1 million ringgit is a great boundary also to protect the affordable market, because the most important bit is that obviously all Malaysians are able to afford a property, but at the same time also that the economy is booming by getting in overseas investments, and with overseas investments come overseas property buyers.
Let's talk a little bit more about the concerns. When foreign buyers come into Malaysia, the possibility or the likelihood of these foreign buyers trying to flip the property to the secondary owners after they have bought the property, it normally happens within the markets of themselves. For instance, Hong Kong buyers buy a property in Malaysia, they flip it to fellow Hong Kongers, Chinese, the same thing. It's very rare you see these properties flip into local hands. Is this a concern that you're looking at?
So it hasn't impacted or it hasn't come up, this concern hasn't come up yet because people are investing into real estate for a number of reasons. Retirement, in this case, it's about living in the property, not passing it on to someone else. Education, to think about their children for education purposes. Only in the investment segment would such a possibility occur, but I don't think anybody would not want to open up their property to the maximum number of buyers and restrict it only to a certain buyer group. So from that perspective, the market, I think, will look after that.
There is also a survey that you guys are running on the likelihood or the attractiveness of foreign buyers into Malaysia. Let's talk a little bit about how the survey came about.
I've got a couple of surveys. The most interesting one and the one you're referring to is the travel survey, or the most recent one. And Malaysia is one of the top destinations for tourism in Asia, especially also for Chinese tourists and others. And what we have found is that of those people traveling to Malaysia, 1/3 of those people are actually in real estate mode, are interested in buying a property while they are on holidays. So they like the environment, they look around, and then they start to think, maybe I should buy a property here. Maybe this is a place which suits my lifestyle preferences. And what we've also found is that of these 1/3 people who are considering buying, actually 1/10 is really actively searching. So you have 10% of all the tourists coming are actively in the market searching for properties. That's quite a large number.
Of course, how would Malaysia properties list on Juai.com? Are they prominently featured, not prominently featured? I mean, we're talking about billion-dollar market, billion people market here. Do you think that there is an opportunity for Malaysians to list prominently on Juai.com?
There's definitely an opportunity to list prominently. I mean, right now, Malaysia is one of the top 5 countries which are searched on Juai. So people, the buyers, are already looking actively for the key locations, and Malaysia is within those top 5 locations.
What would be the other 4 countries?
The other 4 countries would be Thailand, another Southeast Asian country, and then the US, Australia, and then either the UK or Japan. It changes a bit month to month.
Oh, okay. The kind of properties that these, I guess, prospecting customers want to look out for, what kind of properties are they looking at? Like, you know, the type of holding of the
type
house.
of holding. I mean, if they are looking from an educational point of view, it's usually condos. When they're looking from an investment point of view, it's condos and houses pretty much equally weighted. When they're looking for retirement, it's more landed properties, so houses. So it's a fair range of different types of properties people are looking for in Malaysia.
So you don't think that one type of property has an edge over the other when it comes to courting foreign buyers?
It's the location, I think, which makes the biggest difference. So people are looking in KL, in Penang, as well as in JB.
Oh my God, it's the same places again and again and again.
It is the same places again and again and again. Obviously, I think that the more interesting places are the ones which come after those top 3, which is then in East Malaysia. There's quite some demand for KK property, and then also Kuantan comes up quite often due to the industrial investment in
MCKIP.
Yes, exactly. And then Ipoh now and then, and Melaka.
All right, so these are the secondary. Okay, you're right. I guess the more attractive conversation is why these secondary cities as opposed to the top 3.
That's right, that's right.
Do you think that the likelihood of foreigners coming in or foreign buyers coming into Malaysian property is just going to increase over time, or do you think that this kind of demand is pretty stable and therefore there is no need for over concern for locals to actually be worried about foreign buyers snapping up property in Malaysia?
What we have seen is that as a result of a number of factors, the demand for Malaysian property has actually increased over the last 2 years. So that's a fact. The factors are the trade war, which has made Southeast Asia more attractive. The other factors are obviously also enforcement of capital controls in China, which allow only a certain amount of money to be invested overseas, where Malaysian properties are more attractive than properties in the US. Would I be concerned? I think the numbers are still fairly small. I mean, we're talking about 4% of the total market, which gets invested by Chinese buyers at the moment. And I think it's actually a good thing to have, because it's in the higher end of the market, so maintains also the higher end, the demand for high-end properties, and helps also reduce the oversupply in the market. So at this moment, I can't really see any major concerns.
All right, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the chairman of the board of Juai.com right after this. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying on with us. We're talking to Georg Chmiel of Juai.com about foreign buyers coming into Malaysia and buying local properties here. There is plenty of macroeconomic concerns that are currently happening around the world, particularly when it comes to China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. There is continuous geopolitical concerns. In Hong Kong, we have the current democratic protests that are, I guess, continuing to continue. Right? There's no end in sight. Taiwan also has respective issues. Do you think that because of these concerns, there's just going to be more demand, not just from Hong Kong, so not from Chinese residents themselves, but particularly from Hong Kong purchasers and Taiwanese purchasers and the likes? Do you think that there is going to be an increased demand from them in the near future for overseas properties, including Malaysia?
Definitely, we've seen the numbers go up. I mean, inquiries in Australia up 50%. Inquiries for golden visa in Europe, in particular Portugal, are up quite significantly, as well as in the UK. We're not talking about large numbers. I mean, we're talking about a couple of hundred applications in the case of the golden visa, but still a noticeable uplift in the demand is happening at the moment. I think it will be interesting to see how this situation evolves and if things calm down again, because from a pure economic point of view, I mean, there's strong growth in all of these regions. I mean, China is growing at a rate of adding an Australian economy to its GDP every year. So every year, China grows by roughly Australia's size of economy. And I think that's quite remarkable. Also in Hong Kong, we've seen a strong prolonged growth over the last 20 years. The GDP has doubled, and Hong Kong is now growing into this greater Bay Area of Shenzhen, Guangdong and the other places there. So if you leave out the political side, from a pure economic side, which I'm more qualified probably to talk about, I think it's great to see the growth in Asia, in the Asian region, and then also the impact of that on the emerging Asian countries such as Malaysia, Thailand and Vietnam.
Do you think that currency plays an important aspect here, because the ringgit is indeed trading quite low against the US dollar? Do you think that that would be an added appeal for foreign buyers to come in?
Yes.
I mean, 1 million ringgit is like, I don't know, 300,000, right?
250,000 US dollars, yes. And I mean, I would definitely say that if foreign currency has an impact on property acquisitions. We've seen this in Australia, we've seen this in other places as well, because obviously like a 10% or a 20% difference in foreign exchange rates makes a very, very strong impact for people to purchase.
Do you have a visibility of people searching and looking for inquiries versus closing a deal on Juai.com?
We have, we definitely know, I mean, obviously the inquiry numbers, we don't have full transparency of every deal closing, because that's with agents and property developers.
Do you have a
but we
guess?
have, yes, I mean, there's around 10 billion ringgit of property being sold every year or last year to Chinese buyers. That's just to the mainland Chinese buyers. And on top of that, obviously, there's all the other demand from the Asian region. We don't have transparency on that part.
So what's the future like for Malaysian property prices and also the supply that we talk about? You've been here for quite a bit. You know what the local market is going to be looking like. Are we supposed to be optimistic or pessimistic about how the supply continues to add up over time? You know, I mean, property developers are just continuing to build and build and build. It's crazy.
Yes, I mean the current supply or oversupply is around 30,000 properties. Some other people quote different numbers if they include anything else which gets completed, up to south of 100,000 properties. That's still less than a year's supply which gets transacted. So therefore, I'm not overly concerned. I can see definitely that the property market is improving, both also on the higher end due to overseas purchases, as well as in general. And I mean, the Malaysian population is growing at around 2% every year. The wealth is growing in the markets. I mean, the economy is growing at just under 5% year on year, which is very, very strong if you compare it on a global scale. So all this added together with a foreign investment coming into the country, I definitely do believe that the property market is looking into a rosy future, in a more positive future.
Of course, the budget is upon us. It's going to be presented by the government in just 1 or 2 weeks from now. Do you think that there will be some interesting allocations towards property in the budget? Of course, this is just a guessing game, unless you know the budget before I do.
No, I actually don't know the budget yet. But I definitely do believe there will be elements in the budget, I hope, for affordable living, to enabling every Malaysian to own a property. Number one. Number two is I also hope that the core strength of Malaysia are strengthened, like it's a perfect retirement destination, so the MM2H scheme.
Malaysia, my second home.
Yes, the education angle. Malaysia has very, very good universities. Many people send their kids to Malaysia. And then also the health sector, which is an area where Malaysia has a very, very good health system. And that's very attractive for people coming to Malaysia to have certain operations being done.
Of course, do you think that political stability or instability, depending on how you look at it, is an added value or is a concern for foreign buyers?
I mean, political stability is very, very important. I mean, in Malaysia, political instability always creates shifts of demand and changes to the supply. So the stability which Malaysia has at the moment is certainly helping.
Right. That was a fantastic conversation. That was Georg Chmiel of Juwai.com. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to AstroAwani.com. Look for Notepad. These kind of interviews can be found there. You can also watch this interview on the Astro Awani app. You can watch this on your devices. Just download the Astro Awani app wherever you get your application. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time. Thanks.
Thanks.
That's a very good one.